insane movement all over the place at the MLB trade deadline. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Max Sports Entertainment. My name is Deepak Shankar, and we're here to recap some of the moves that happened after it's all processed with the MLB trade deadline. So there were a bunch of moves made. In particular, we're just going to go through the moves that were made on Monday before 6 p.m., the last day of the trade deadline on August 3rd. And so, we'll kind of split this into two parts. So first part will be maybe 50%, anywhere from 50% to 65% of the moves that were made on Monday in terms of trades, notable ones in particular, teams, and as well as teams that are in contention and improving their teams, not just like kind of whatever transactions, if you will. And then we'll go through the rest of them on a second video. And so, firstly, the Yankees traded for Heliot Ramos, an outfielder from the Giants. And so I think overall makes sense for the Giants. They were big sellers at the deadline. Obviously traded Arraez to the Phillies. They traded Robbie Ray as well. And so, the Yankees get Heliot Ramos. It's kind of a good secondary piece to Luis Garcia, who they'd already traded for. They get Heliot Ramos, another outfielder, another steady bat that can kind of keep the Yankees afloat in the meantime while they're waiting for Bellinger and Aaron Judge to come back, and even Stanton to a lesser extent. When they all come back, and if they do, we'll see how that all kind of fits together and how they work that out with the Yankees. And they obviously, now they already brought up their top prospect, George Lombard, who's looked pretty good in his limited action so far in the majors. So they'll have to figure it all out with all those guys and trying to figure out the optimal batting order. But I think it's a good trade for them. It makes sense and improves their chances even more at advancing throughout the American League playoffs. And so, obviously the Giants are going to be rebuilding. And so if you like more of this content, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, turn on post notifications, share, comment, all that good stuff. Helps your boy out. Appreciate it in advance. And so, secondly, Clay Holmes, pitcher, was traded from the Mets to the Cubs. The Mets, obviously, one of, if not the biggest seller at the deadline. The Cubs, one of the biggest buyers at the deadline. And so it makes sense for both sides. I think Mets just looking to rebuild around a young core of guys after them having the second highest payroll in baseball with the likes of Lindor and Soto, etc., has not worked out. But they trade Clay Holmes to the Cubs. It improves their pitching, which is what they needed, obviously. As we talked about before, their offense was fine. It was just, in their defense, it was just about getting better pitching. And between this move and the Kevin Gausman trade, I think they've really solidified their pitching overall. And they trade away a couple prospects, so I think that part should be fine. The Cubs are good at developing anyway and better than the Mets, so you just know at a certain point the Mets are just going to mess it up no matter who they get back. I mean, they traded one of their own prospects, Pete Armstrong, to the Chicago Cubs, ironically, and all of a sudden he's become an MVP player this year. So, if I had to pick, probably the Cubs win this trade pretty easily. And then let's see here. Another couple of moves. So the Brewers did probably could have done more. I was a little bit disappointed overall with their trade deadline overall. I thought maybe they would make a run for Terry Skubal to pair with Jacob Misiorowski, but they did get Dustin May, and they got him from the St. Louis Cardinals. Made sense that they're selling. I mean, they're somewhat in the NL wildcard race, but not really. I mean, kind of on the fringe in that jam log of teams there. And the Brewers capitalize. They get another quality starting pitcher to go with, Jacob Misiorowski, and a good overall rotation that they have. And they get reliever Jojo Romero as a bonus as well. And then they give the Cardinals a couple prospects. And the Cardinals are usually good developing their own homegrown talent and players, so I'm sure it could work out for them in the long term. So I think it could be a very even deal or slightly in favor of the Brewers for getting Dustin May. So I think it was a move they definitely had to make as kind of a plan B post Skubal. I thought maybe they could have gone after Casey Mize too, who we'll get to later. Got traded right at the buzzer at the trade deadline from Detroit. And so, I mean, the Brewers, this definitely helps their chances to come out of the National League. They're already one of the best teams in baseball. So this only, like I said, helps their chances. Where Dustin May, I mean, he's not had his best year per se, but he's still been very good overall in terms of the true advanced numbers, like expected ERA, among other things, where he could still be a valuable addition for the Brewers in the long term. And so, in addition, the Cubs, along with trading for 2 starting pitchers, they get the reliever Ryan Zephyr-John from the Angels, and that's a really good buy for them in terms of getting a quality reliever, where Webb was good, but they didn't really have any sort of bridge in between guys, between the starters and him to really rely on. But that's a great trade for the Cubs. Zephyr-John throws hard. He's got good numbers this year. And the Angels are just kind of like the Mets, where you just know they're going to mess things up. I mean, if you can mess it up with homegrown players like Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, who are 2 of the literal greatest players in the history of the game, then you're probably going to mess it up with basically anyone. So, I think it's a win for the Cubs, short and long term. And so there was that trade. And then another trade that the Mets made, they sent reliever Luke Weaver to the Pirates. And the Pirates, kind of weird deadline. They were kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They weren't totally sellers, but they weren't totally buyers either. But here, they got Weaver, and he's been really good for the Mets this season, less than a 2 ERA in 11 appearances. And it makes sense for the Mets, an expiring deal, same thing, trying to go young, transition into a new era. The Pirates, I mean, they're looking to make the playoffs for the first time in however many years. I think first time since 2013 or 14. And they're right in that fringe of the logjam in the American League in terms of the wild card. So we'll see if it pays off for them. They have a decent squad, with obviously Skeens and Ashcraft, and got some decent hitting. So this will definitely help them out in terms of giving them a really solid reliever in between their starting pitching and their closer. And then the big trade, in-division trade, which you rarely see, the Red Sox trade for Adley Rutschmann from the Orioles, and that was pretty shocking. Orioles failed rebuild. You knew it was coming, that Adley Rutschmann was going to be traded, and the Yankees were interested, the Rays were interested, a bunch of teams were interested. I mean, he's been a 3-time All-Star, been a really good player, especially the Yankees. They've been looking for a catcher, and a lot of Yankees fans, from what I had seen, really wanted him. But it's instead the Red Sox who get him, and their fans were extremely hyped about it. People I know, they were jumping for joy, where they knew that even though their team has been on fire lately on almost all cylinders, that they weren't getting much from from the catcher position with the guys they had currently, and that was kind of their one low light offensively, and he pretty much can come right in and solve that issue, even with some of the injury problems he's dealing with. But the Red Sox trade a couple of prospects to the Orioles, and Orioles, I mean, they're kind of a hit or miss franchise, so I mean, we'll see if those moves, those prospects really pay off for them. But I think for the Red Sox, it's good. It really strengthens their lineup even more and makes them, I would say, even more of a contender going into October to make the World Series and even win it for the first time since 2018. In addition, the Rays, they get Liam Hicks, so they continue to buy. Obviously, they're not going to be the biggest buyers because they obviously are much more analytic dependent, and their payroll isn't as high as some of these other big market teams, understandably so. But they always kind of like the Brewers. They're like the AL Brewers, I kind of like to call them, where they just can stay competitive no matter what. They get catcher Liam Hicks, who's solid, from Miami, and Miami is another one of those teams where you're not really betting on prospects to work out. So they get Jacob Kirsting, Adrian Santana, and Braden Taylor. The Rays, another interesting team. I mean, they're kind of like those, Billy Bean A's of the 2000s, where they always have good regular seasons, but they're never able to put it together when it matters most in October. And obviously part of that is they're kind of at a disadvantage with their payroll and their resources. They are kind of limited in that department, but it's one of those things where if you can do it in the regular season, you got to be able to do it in the playoffs too. And so, I mean, they only made the one World Series in 2020. And for all the success they've had these past few years in regular seasons, they haven't been able to prove it come October during playoff time over the course of the last, 6-7 years, this whole decade. So we'll see if it pays off for them with the Rays, because I think it definitely does fill a need that they had, because the top of their order especially is really good, and their rotation is really good with Rasmussen and Freddie Peralta and others, where yeah, it's just their middle and lower order that needed some help, and Liam Hicks can certainly provide that. He's played really well this year. Let's see here. Yeah, and then the Mets sent reliever Brooks Raleigh, to the Phillies. As a Phillies fan, love that acquisition. He's been fantastic. One of the sole bright spots for the Mets this year. And the Mets received a couple prospects, John Spikerman and Luke Gabrish in the deal. And the Mets continue their fire sale. We'll see how it works out for them. The Phillies definitely needed a reliever where starting pitching is really good, especially their top three, and then Joe Anderon, their closer's good, but they didn't have many good relievers, so Raleigh definitely helps them out, especially I believe he's lefty, so that helps too. So really as like a 7th, 8th inning type of guy, he can be really good late in the season and come playoff time, because, I mean, it's Anthony Dominguez, post-PEDs, has not had it. Jonathan Boland's been pretty good, but like Orion Kerkering and Tim Meza, some of these other guys, they just have not been up to par. And the Phillies definitely needed bullpen help, so this was definitely addressed even more of a need than even the Arraez trade. And I like that trade more, we'll get to that later, than this Brooks Raleigh trade, but I think this definitely filled more of a need than the Arraez trade did. Especially positionally, excuse me. And yeah, and then we get to Luis Arraez to the Phillies. Really like that trade. Also, the Phillies got Caleb Killian, a bullpen guy from the Giants, really hard throwing righty. Not the best numbers, but does have some pretty good stuff, has some good potential, so we'll see where that goes. But the Phillies did give up Ramon Marquez, who was one of their top prospects, which on one hand does suck, but on the other hand, it's like, they haven't had a whole lot of prospects internally that have panned out in recent years. You think about Mickey Moniak and Aaron Nola, who was good, but didn't live up to the billing of what we thought he could be the first couple years of his career. Andrew Painter was like the #1 prospect in the country, I think, at one point a couple years ago, and it's early in his career, he still has time, but he hasn't been as good so far, at least, as what we thought he'd be. And so there were rumors of him potentially getting traded. But I think, yeah, Luis Arraez, really good contact hitter, puts the ball in play, doesn't strike out a lot, 3-time batting champ, been with multiple teams, and I love his energy from what we've seen. Every time he gets a hit, every time he makes a good defensive play, he's always really hype, and brings a contagious energy that I think the Phillies sorely needed. And I mean, first game against the Nationals, he came out, had a couple of hits, and I just think he provides a great contrast to the rest of the Phillies lineup outside of maybe Stott and Brandon Marsh, where all those guys, Harper, Schwarber, Trey Turner, they're trying to hit bombs, they're trying to hit home runs. But this guy can get on base and put the ball in play, get singles, doubles. So while he doesn't have much power at all, really. I mean, he has the 3rd best batting average overall career-wise of anyone in the MLB in the 21st century. I mean, only, I think it's Barry Bonds and Vladimir Guerrero are ahead of him. I mean, that's insane company to be in. And so, yeah, and I think there was a lot of controversy about, 1, him hitting cleanup, and then 2, the defensive changes that were being made. 1, in terms of cleanup, I think it makes sense because he'll drive in RBIs where he's not as high a reward, but he's also less high risk. So he is really good in terms of driving in runners when they're in scoring position, compared to Alec Boehm, especially him sliding down to number 5 is huge. So yeah, I mean, he's been struggling the whole year. So I think while there was a lot of hate from Phillies fans with that decision from Don Mattingly, I did agree with that. And then secondly, the defensive changes, obviously moving Stott from second base to I think it was shortstop, and then Trey Turner moved, and then Alec Boehm moved, and then Bryce Harper moved out to the outfield for the first time in 5 years. All sorts of changes. And so what I would say is that I think Luis Arraez, even though Bryce Stott is arguably a Gold Glove second baseman, level second baseman, I think Luis Arraez is still better. And I think it's not like the Phillies' defense was any good anyway with where those guys were at. So I think a change was needed. And so even though it's a lot and it'll take some time to get used to, I think I don't mind all those changes, but obviously we'll see how it plays out. Phillies, as of now, of the time of this recording, only one game up on the Padres for that last wild card spot. They're tied with the Diamondbacks. So pretty much every game from here on out is going to be nearly must win, or basically hate watching the Padres to see them lose. So hopefully for the fighting Phils, it can work out. Yeah, let's see. I mean, I think, yeah, that's probably it for the, for the first part of this video. So again, a lot of trades, Cubs and Phillies making moves, Mets and Giants, in terms of being buyers, and then the Cubs and Giants, the Mets and Giants, were big sellers. And so we'll get to part 2 of this video later on, in terms of the rest of the trade deadline moves that were made on Monday. I mean, there was a bunch, so I couldn't fit them all into one video, but we'll get to them. And yeah, that's all I had, and that video will be much shorter too. So anyway, yeah, that's all I had. Appreciate you guys for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, turn on post notifications, all that good stuff. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.